so now it's time to talk about Ready Set Gamechat. The game we played was The Suicide of Rachel Foster. How many? Okay, everybody played it, right? Start to finish?
I did it.
I played it in 2 sessions.
2 sessions.
Which it wasn't that long.
I did the first 2 days, and then I was like, I'll play the rest of this later. And then I might have finished it shortly before this podcast.
I did the first, what were there, 8 or 9 days?
9 days total.
I did the first 8 days.
Oh,
and then called it a night.
Wow. See,
He had no idea. So then you came back and you were like, oh, there's not... Okay. There's like half hour left.
Yeah.
I was on day 4 when I Googled how many days there were, but like day 5 and 6 are just like a quick thing.
Did we all play on PC?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's only available on Steam. I'm not completely sure.
I thought it's definitely on PlayStation.
Oh,
Okay.
It was? Oh. I got it on Steam, and then I actually played with my Steam Link and played it on my living room. For the first time I've really tried that.
It's on everything, yeah.
You know what's really weird about this game?
Except for
So
Switch.
when I loaded it up, the main menu did fill my entire ultra-wide monitor. So I'm excited. This game supports ultra-wide. Then I start the game and it squishes it down to the center.
Oh.
Except in the left corner outside of the like normal where I see the game, it like was like Montana, like it told me where I was, but everything else was just in the center. And I was like, so you're supporting it, but in the weirdest possible way.
You're supporting it, but bad. You're supporting it poorly.
I don't know if maybe it was just because they like wanted you to not be able to look as much as possible.
Yeah, probably. Okay, so we all played on PC. I played it all the way through. You guys played it in 2 sessions.
Oh, by the way, if you are new, this is going to be spoiler filled.
Yeah.
So if you haven't played The Suicide of Rachel Foster and want to play The Suicide of Rachel Foster, skip ahead to
38 minutes and 47 seconds.
How do we want to go about discussing this? Do you guys have like any first impressions noted down or anything like that?
I took no notes, but you want to know my impressions throughout? The dialogue felt super freaking weird. The Irving character was saying sketchy things. So there was a lot of the dialogue felt kind of off, but there was certainly points where like Irving was saying super weird shit. And like it made sense at the end why he was saying this weird shit, why he would like be able to
your character didn't react in a way that was like, hey,
no,
that's
at no point it's like, hey, why'd you call me cutie pie? That's super weird. Oh, you're not going to acknowledge it at any point? That's fucked.
And it didn't give you like the appropriate responses either. Like when you were choosing, it was like, am I flirting with this guy? Why am I flirting with this guy? What's going on here?
also, okay, so another thing I hated about it was that they would have a conversation and be like, oh, you got to go to the fridge and get this thing, da-da-da-da. And then you'd be like, okay, cool, I'm going to go do that. Hang up. Like 2 seconds later, oh, hey, just to let you know, the fridge, like, fucking say the whole thing at once. Like, constantly they'd be picking up. It's like, hey, have the conversation, say the thing, give me a task to do, and let me do it. Because sometimes they would have conversations. I'd go like, okay, what am I supposed to do? And then like a few seconds later, they'd call again and then actually give me something to do. And I was like,
yeah. So that was one of the things I noticed early on, right? Is like you have your map button, and when you pull out your map, there's a little to-do list. And like half the time when I'd look at it, it was empty. And I was like, okay, what am I gonna do now? Just walk around until I can click on something? Like,
there was okay. So it seems that once you get that first key, the whole place basically opens up to you. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up just kind of wandering around. I do wish the map said like you are here, because you kind of have to like know where you are to be able to use the map. I
think the map and the environment and like the visual assets are the 3 strengths of this game, and everything else is like I did not enjoy.
Yeah. So I ended up wandering around. I ended up finding the church super early, and it was like
weird.
this is super weird. And then they were still having the conversation about like how to turn on the boiler, and I'm like, what's with this weird church? There are sleeping bags here. I feel like we should talk about this. And he's just like, so you put on the thing for the boiler, and I'm like, why? Like, either not allow me to be here right now, or so I wonder.
That's weird that that's not gated in a way.
Yeah.
Right.
So that begs the question, could you go to the secret room right away?
No, you couldn't.
No, because that was barred off.
That was barred off. There was a wall there.
That was like, yeah, the doors were closed and there was a bar down on it. Like it was like closed off for renovations.
No, so there was the place that Irving was, but there was the place where...
No, that was closed off.
Okay, Rachel's room was also...
I looked under the stairs there, like to see if there was anything, and there was like a wall, and it wasn't interactable or anything. Okay. And then immediately after going through that sequence, I was like, oh, now there's a door there. Like,
yeah.
Oh, now.
So I will say.
Okay, so we're already tearing this game to shreds. Let me go back to the first wondrous
We should
notes
probably
that
say
I
what
was
kind
making.
of game it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think each person gets to lead the discussion about their game. So Darian's showing us how it's done. So Darian, whatever you want to say.
Well, okay, well, I took detailed notes right at the beginning.
Hit me with
I
them.
was like, I'm writing down first impressions, and
did you want to give an overview of what Suicide of Rachel Foster is?
Yeah, let me read the Steam page again.
That's a good
Everybody
idea.
loves when I do that. It's kind of long. Bear with me. 1993, Lewis and Clark County, Montana, U.S. 10 years ago, teenager Nicole and her mother left the family hotel after discovering her father Leonard's affair with and pregnancy of Rachel, a girl her own age who eventually committed suicide. Now that both of her parents have passed, Nicole hopes to fulfill her mother's last wish to sell the hotel and make amends to Rachel's relatives. With the will and determination to put that chapter behind her, she returns to the hotel and with the family's lawyer to audit the decaying structure. As the weather unexpectedly turns for the worse, Nicole has no way to leave the large mountain lodge and finds support in Irving, a young FEMA agent, using one of the first radio telephones ever built. Because it's 1993 and it's not today's technology. With his help, Nicole starts to investigate a mystery far deeper than what people in the valley thought. A story of love and death where melancholy and nostalgia melt into a thrilling ghost tale. Fuck, I didn't read that whole description. The first several times that I've read this, I never read thrilling ghost tale. Oh my God.
So,
not really a ghost. Is it a ghost tale?
Yes.
Kind of.
To simplify it, it's a walking simulator with real super creepy vibes.
Well, spooky vibes.
Which, after I started it, I Snapchatted Darren, and I'm like, is this a spooky game? You have to tell me if it's a spooky game. And she was like, yes, it's creepy, but nothing's there. Nothing's going to get you. You're fine. So I was like, okay, all of these creepy noises nothing's going to grab me or anything. There's definitely jump scares. There's definitely a few things.
I said that.
But
what would
to be fair,
can you give me an example of one of the jump scares? Because I feel like it really didn't.
There's
any.
several times
there's a
like
point where doors slam shut.
Oh yeah, okay, that's true. There's like some lights on the wall and stuff.
There's nothing that jumps in view, but there's several sudden sounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so she said like nothing's there, and I think you meant that in the way of like nothing's going to
there's
kill
not
you.
A monster actively.
Yeah.
But there is something there. Arguably, I do think that they did insinuate that there is a ghost.
Yes.
Because
I think that was kind of one of the narrative goals.
Rachel's there.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's definitely an element of like Irving was doing things, but then there's also a thing of like more was happening than Irving would be capable of. Like there was doors that were slamming that were not, like, he was not there. That was not his doing.
I mean,
it could have been arguably the wind, but the way they were slamming was like, why are they suddenly able to do that?
Because he rigged it up and pulled a string, and they all slammed shut.
he did it to spook you on purpose.
Because he's
no,
a
that's definitely
psychopath.
not a thing.
Yeah, you would have seen the strings.
we're going all the way back to the beginning before the parts where Bryce and Matt were like, all right, this is a bad game. So the game opens.
How do you guys feel about the way they do movement? Because in general, I do not like the rocky back and forth movement.
I played on a controller, so it was naturally less than ideal.
I played on a controller,
so I just figured it was like, okay, these are PC controls on a controller, so it's going to feel awkward.
I had no issues with movement.
I played on controller.
I didn't have that feeling.
You didn't have it where it's kind of like, what, not like
it was really subtle. With a mouse and keyboard, you can, because I'm controlling where I'm looking the whole time, so the rock isn't as noticeable because I'm moving what I'm looking at consistently.
And being able to point at things with a mouse rather than a stick, it's like, okay, that's way more fine-tuned.
It's a more smooth experience. I didn't experience that issue.
Okay. I did end up sprinting almost all the time.
Because
I thought walking was way too slow.
Yeah.
Walking was too slow. And sprinting wasn't fast enough sometimes. No. I got so frustrated.
They took way too long to tell me what the sprint button was.
Oh, I suppose on a controller, you might have to be told.
No, I just push buttons until I got what I wanted.
I tried a few,
that's what I do in games. I experiment until I figure out if I can or cannot run and how to do so every time. Okay, so the game opens and the graphics are gorgeous.
It's a nice looking game.
So pretty, yeah. There was a lot of really cool details. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed that there were literally like teardrops on the letter that she'd written.
Oh, yeah, it was
mom had written to her. And
I wish that
flipping
part
back
was voice narrated.
Yeah, me too. The letter from her mom, that would have been nice.
Oh, well, so I had subtitles on, and the subtitles were not matching with the words on the letter.
Mine didn't either.
The subtitles had a separate thing going on. So there might have been like a narration that was glitched out. Because there was a couple times in my gameplay where there was definitely supposed to be audio playing, but there was none and there was subtitles.
I didn't run into that. I did run into the thing right away, and I was like, is this supposed to be her thoughts? Maybe it was supposed to be voice, but yeah, I would have liked to not
having it read to me would have been nice.
Especially because you had to read the scripty
Yeah, it was in cursive.
Yep. When you first get to control Nicole and you are in her dad's apartment or whatever, the master suite, I wrote Nicole is super tall because the fridge that they have must be really small or something, because where you're standing, you are almost to the ceiling in that kitchen. You are above the fridge.
To be fair, it's a hotel room that they just happen to be living in.
Right. I just thought it was really funny.
Like you're giant.
Yeah, it was wild. And all of the books being about science. And I don't know if you guys read and tried to
read every
investigate any of the books in her dad's study and stuff, but I read a lot of them and I learned a lot about physics and string theory that I didn't think I needed to know.
Do you think that information is accurate or just what they were?
Or do you think it thematically ties to the game at all?
I feel like they were going to do more with it than they did. I feel like they were trying to set up something that went nowhere, because they could have done some weird thing about how they talked about how her dad was communicating with Rachel after she died or whatever. And they could have done so much more. They could have been oh yeah, he was trying to bring her back from the dead and did all this studying into, different universes and multiple realities and string theory and blah, blah, blah. They could have made more out of it. But that ended up going nowhere. Oh yeah, your dad was just a weird rocket scientist, I guess, or some shit.
It was just a real pedo. So that really, okay.
That whole thing made me wildly uncomfortable.
That made me not want to play the game and feel like I got ripped off because I bought the game.
Yeah.
Those two things, I was like, I don't want to support this. This is weird. She was 16, and that really damaged how I feel about the game.
16 and not all there mentally.
Yeah.
Well, and
it was this guy should be in jail. Why wasn't he arrested? How does everybody in town know about this and he didn't get arrested?
Yeah. So all the way at the end, right, when Irving and her are discussing it, when she finds out that Irving was there or whatever the whole time, right? And they're romanticizing it. He's they were just in love. It was fine.
Not only did you bring up like this weird sensitive topic, you then also drove home the exact wrong idea.
Yeah.
Like you were like, this is my statement, and it's like, no, that is fucked up. Like, what are you doing?
Also, if we're gonna talk about that, so it seemed like Irving and her dad were in league together about this whole thing.
Yeah, and he was
to torture. So the dad was in league to have his daughter tortured, basically. Like for what? Like, don't tell me. For all the shit that Irving was putting together, that all the clues that he was leading on, he had to know. I guess the only thing that I could have been like, he thought it was either Nicole or her mother. He didn't know which one. But you're like, he had to know, like, oh, because there was a whole deal of like, I just needed your help to find out. Why'd you torture her then? It was, you basically were.
Yeah.
Kind of fucked up.
Yeah, that really lost me. Like, once that was the main through line or subject of the game, I was just like, I feel disgusting playing this.
Yeah, and right at the beginning, I was leaving notes about how, like, there was so much dead time. Like, sometimes a little slow, some dead space and exploration. The atmosphere was 90% of the game. There wasn't a whole lot of music, which was accurate at the beginning. It made it seem like there was going to be like some kind of dynamic soundtrack, but then it just stops. There's just no music. And that was weird. And also at the point where you're like getting food because you need to survive in the hotel, and it makes you go through all of the steps of finding the food, putting it in the microwave, waiting for the microwave.
The fucking microwave. What did you want us to do?
Yeah, and there was no dialogue or anything. Like, she wasn't like, oh, let's chit-chat with this. Like, it was just nothing.
What did you guys do in that kitchen segment? Like, did you know?
I looked at my phone.
Oh, okay. Because
I was just waiting to be scared. At some point, I got too nervous, and I had to pull up a walkthrough to tell me what to do next so that I didn't, like, cry. Because the spooky vibes were a little bit too much for my anxiety, and I was mad about it.
Can we talk about the part where you have the sound listening thing?
The best part of the game.
So you get that on, I think, the first floor. So I scanned that around the first thing, and then you walk through. Yeah, you exit the door. The way that they ended the days was so fucking weird too.
Yeah, those were like the biggest jump scares in the game, honestly.
It made no...
just fade to black. Like,
this aggressive cut with a boom sound. Like,
yeah.
Like, was it day 5 where she just seemed to have a dream, and that's all she did that day? It's like, what else is happening? There, like, the day she got the listening device, she's like, oh, let me tell you, it cuts. And I'm like, then what? Shouldn't we be scanning? What are you doing here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, when you got the scanning device, that's when I was like, nope, I need to walk through, because I'm gonna discover something I don't want to. I need to make sure that like nothing's gonna jump at me.
So I enjoyed that like ghost hunter B plot storyline. I was like, okay, like they're actually doing something interesting here now instead of just like you're walking through this building. I liked the video thing. I was like, okay, cool. They're trying to be spooky. They're trying to set up a little tension here. And then you get the little, I don't know what to call it. Satellite, like a sound dish.
It's just a microphone.
A fancy microphone, yeah.
And then all you end up doing with it, though, is getting an achievement.
Well, you had to
hitting the right spot.
You had to find the place. Like, it was a way to find out where they wanted you to go. But I ended up going up, checked the entire first floor. I ended up going to the second floor and basically checked every place on the second and first floor, because like I'd go like, oh, it's getting louder, and just check everywhere. And then finally I ended up on the main floor.
Where did it end up leading you?
To the ballroom where the chandelier had fallen. At least that's
okay. Right. So I got an achievement for going the opposite direction from the dining room. If you came down from that overlook room and before you got to the kitchen and stuff, there was like that back staircase and it was like an old dining room. It was like if you went into the back hallway off of that kind of under the overlook. I got an achievement called like Ghost Hunter, and it was like you actually hit like voices.
Oh, I heard voices throughout several times. So, like on the second floor and stuff.
Yeah, it sounded like wind chimes. Sometimes.
Right, the chandelier did. Yeah.
Yeah, that I ended up getting lost, so I was frustrated with that. I will say there was the time that you had to turn on the generator, and the guy was like, make sure to follow the wires so you don't get lost. I'm like, fuck you, and I went to every possible. Oh, I'm like, oh, secret thing here.
What was in those other directions? Because that was at the point where I was like, I'm spooked enough that I'm not gonna look at anything other than the wire.
I'm just
I'm just gonna look at the wire.
There was panels, like hidden panels that allowed you to kind of like go into those secret passages.
The crawl spaces.
Yeah.
So that was like
rooms.
almost an allusion to like what would come later when you discovered Rachel's
sort
room
of. Yeah,
in
sort
that
of.
way. Like, oh yeah, look at all these weird random places you can go.
Yeah, there was
foreshadowing.
a push type thing through there, and I found some of those throughout. Like it seemed like there was a shit ton of hidden passages that you could find, which I was like, oh, maybe this will be helpful to get around later, but it didn't really matter.
So I actually got a little bit confused with like Rachel's actual room discovery thing. Like, was she living there, or
no idea.
Was that just a shrine that he had made or some shit?
I had a lot of questions about it.
Yeah, there's so many like red herrings, I guess. I don't know. Did Irving make that? Like,
I have no idea. No, it seemed like it was at least there as long as Rachel's dad.
Well, I mean,
or not Rachel. Sorry, Nicole's dad.
Yeah,
it seemed like Irving and Nicole's dad, Leonard, we're just freaking palling around, at least for a bit, just plotting to torture his daughter.
Well, they were plotting to figure out what happened to Rachel, right? Like,
right.
The way that they ultimately decided to do it was not great.
By trapping the other
Let's
daughter.
stock up on mannequins. Yeah. My daughter, after I die, my daughter is going to have to come back here, so let's get a shit ton of mannequins.
Yeah, mannequins are the worst.
The room discovery was like the turning point in the plot for Nicole, where she started to be weirded out by it.
What? Yeah,
right? Like up until that point, she was just like, I'm walking around this old house, and that was like, there was this disconnect between me and her, right, as the player, because I'm like, this is a creepy building. There's weird stuff going on. This guy sure knows a lot about what's going on here. But like, she's like, I used to live there or whatever. I used to spend all my time there. So she's totally comfortable, right? She's like, oh, this is home, basically, right? So like, that was weird.
The first time he called me cutie pie, I was like, why is there not an option to be like, what the fuck? And her response of like, Dad? Like, what? What?
Daddy?
I snuck a peek at the achievements. And so I discovered that there was one for scoring a date, and it didn't give any details. It was just like, get a date. And I was like, what? So then once Irving started being like slightly flirty, I was like, oh, I want to date Irving. And so anytime it gave you the option to say something ridiculously flirty, I was like, that one, we're going to be stupid.
No, I found the dude's interaction super sketch the entire time.
Yeah, I was uncomfortable with them, but
I still wanted that date.
It was funny. Yeah, I wanted that. I wanted the achievement. I was like, what do I got to do to pop this?
If it involved, if the date ends with me being murdered, so be it.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the bedroom being like a child's room? Like, that was really fucked up too.
I mean,
like, what the hell is going on?
There's like a rocking horse.
Yeah, everything about that didn't really make
a 5-year-old's room.
Right. Also, why did he actually have the retainer? Like, why was the retainer there?
There's so many weird things about it. Like, yeah, I mean, they showed off the retainer, the logo, the like loading screen things was her retainer.
Yeah.
And so that seemed to be like, this is going to be the big reveal. But it's like, so why? Yeah, she got rid of the body, presumably, but held on to the retainer or what?
Maybe it just got like smacked out of her.
there's so much of this that like it seemed they wanted to have a bunch of red herrings and a big deal without.
I feel like,
I mean, the ending did feel like a twist ending. I was hoping that through all of the weird little reveals and stuff that like Rachel wasn't actually going to be dead.
Yeah,
I was
that's what I was hoping for.
That's what was going to come about. Is like, oh, Rachel was alive this whole time. She was living in the hotel behind, in all these secret doors and hiding from people. And when Leonard died, Rachel and their child were still there, right? And like, some weird thing with that, right? But no, it was like, oh no, she did die, but she didn't suicide herself.
Yeah, so
she was murdered. Like.
Right, which was like clear. I thought it was like kind of fairly. It might have been right around the church sequence, right, where you wake up in the church and you're like had none of your gear, and it felt like the game was broken. I actually reloaded the game at that section because I was like, oh, none of my equipment's here.
See, well, yeah, when I couldn't bring up the map or anything, I was like, am I playing as Rachel now?
That too, I had that thought too. But then there was a map audio sound effect when I hit it, so I was like, oh. This is broken, and I reloaded the game.
Oh no!
And then I was like, oh, I guess I'm just supposed to leave here.
When I was like, oh, I'm gonna go back to my room, and I expected to see Nicole sleeping in the bed, and I was like, oh no, and I was like, oh, my stuff's over there, and so that.
That would have been cool too. We should have helped them make this game. They need to re-release this game, and there's got to be multiple different weird realities coinciding. Because otherwise, what's the point of all those
subject
books?
matter choices they made?
Also, never ever make it seem like it was okay for Leonard to be fucking a 16-year-old. There's no reality in which that should have been romanticized and made okay. Okay, that's just not. It's not okay. Oh, Jesus.
But yeah, right around the church, I think it was like clear that it was a murder because I was like, oh, it's one of the parents. And I first picked Rachel's dad. I was like, oh, they're like, he's super strict religious dude. Is like, oh, he murdered her, right? Like, that's totally what happened. But then I was like, oh, maybe it was the other dad or the mom. Like, it's one of them. One of them killed her.
Yeah, I guess I didn't get the murder thing for a bit. But what frustrated me was that she was like, oh, maybe she's alive. And I was like, they found her body, right? Like it says her body was here, and then later they talk about like the coroner looked at her body and are like, we know her body. Like, what did the coroner do? Like, just like look at a pic, like, I think she jumped from over there. She's probably like, no, we know her body. How would she not be dead? So I had no doubt in my head that she was dead because it's like, if you have the body, there's no doubt. So
I just hoped that they'd somehow magically faked it. My conspiracy theory brain was like, oh, he's not really, or she's not really dead. Yeah. She's alive somewhere. Like, that would have been so much cooler. And it was just a big cover-up scandal. That would have made for a much better story.
Yeah, I feel like they wanted to throw you off the trail so much with these red herrings that, like, it didn't make sense. Like, the room doesn't make sense.
They gave too many... They tried too many things and made it not good.
I will admit I didn't see Irving living in the attic and torturing us the entire time. I thought he was a super creepo.
That's fair.
But I don't think you're allowed to use red herrings that don't make sense in a mystery. Like, there has to be a reason for this to happen.
So at the very end, after you've uncovered the secret of Rachel, right, and you've come to closure or whatever, and so you call your lawyer and say, I don't want to sell.
Oh, can I say something real quick?
Yes.
So right away, the dude's like, hey, you need to look through the house, before we can sell it. It has to be you. And I'm like, no, that's not the owner doesn't inspect the house. That would be and she could just be like, it looks great, looks fantastic.
$20 million.
Yeah, she does. There's no reason she had to be there. It could have been handled. They just made that as an excuse so that the game would work. But go on.
I think they used it as like a hook, mostly so that like honestly, as the seller, she would have had to be there to sell, like to sign paperwork,
like to confirm that she was gonna sell it, right?
Well, no, the lawyer could have just sent her the paperwork in the mail.
They could have, but we needed an excuse to explore this old.
You have to come back to the town you ran away from.
Honestly, if they just did a hey, clear out your shit before, grab your dad's stuff before we sell it. That would have been a better
they
one.
could have had a better plug, honestly. But so did we all got to the end. Did you know that there's 2 potential endings?
I had a feeling.
I looked it up just to
stopped
see.
her.
Yeah, did you stop her from killing herself, or did you let her kill
yeah.
herself?
I stopped her.
And how out of the fucking blue did that feel?
See,
that scene made no sense to me at all thematically. Like, why the fuck did Nicole want to kill herself?
Yeah, like it was like she just went crazy. She was literally like talking to her mom and stuff, and it was like, what? Where did this come from? You were fine a second ago.
So the last thing you do right before that scene, right, is you're talking to Irving, you're washing the blanket or whatever, and then she has that freak out moment of like Rachel was coming for her, right? It was like you were standing in the laundry room.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, she's like, Rachel, is that you? And then it cuts.
Yeah, so it's like, I think she was like possessed was, I think, what they were going for.
Oh.
Maybe.
Like Rachel was trying to get you to kill yourself?
Yeah, that's what I took it as.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
Because she like freaked out, like, oh god, she's here, and like then it got like weird and warped for a second, and then you wake up
and then
at
you
your
wake
car.
up in the car.
I guess, but I the way that it seemed, the way I saw Rachel was that she was, and Irving kind of suggested it, that was that like Rachel was there helping her brother, like
right.
So it wasn't like I'm here to hurt you, I'm just here to help my brother do what he wants.
Right.
So, and the brother seemed to like, once he got.
So I thought his ending was really unexpected. Like he just ran out into the snow.
Okay, so I think that made more sense from if he thought that Nicole was the murderer, he wanted a satisfying like he wanted her to be tortured and reveal herself as the murderer and then be able to like do something about it. But seeing as the person who killed her, his sister's already dead, he's like so I have nothing, I have no completion. I just did this fucked up thing. I'm gonna go on, like I'm gonna go into the woods, I guess. So I could kind of see that, but I don't know. It's everything about this is just weird and bad.
Questionable choices. Yeah, so so after you've solved the mystery, you the player you wake up in your car.
Yeah.
And your only option is to turn the gas on, right? To turn the car on?
Yeah, while you're talking to your mom about going to a picnic.
Right, and inviting all the characters from the game to the picnic.
That was super weird. Super weird. I don't remember who so excitedly recommended this game to me, because somebody told me you have to play this game. You're going to love it. See? And I'm glad. I mean, they should be glad I don't remember who it was, because I want to punch him in the fucking face. Because now it's come so far that I was like, oh, I'm so jazzed. We're going to play this game. I'm going to get my podcast to play. We're going to talk about it together. And it's just like, what a fucking disappointment, man. What a joke.
Okay, so was there anything else we wanted to say about this before?
So did everybody turn the car off?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we all saved her.
Do we know what happens if we didn't?
She just dies.
She does.
Anything beyond that? Does she go to
Nothing
heaven?
significant. There's no like additional scene or any shit.
Was there
she just fades away.
After we turn the car off, was there a cut for another scene?
No, it goes to credits, I think.
Okay. So she had the retainer in her hand the whole time?
Yeah, I found it super weird. Why are you holding the retainer?
Okay, because I thought I was misremembering that, and it was like, oh, after you turn the car off, then you're like you're Rachel in the car or something.
But I guess
all endings. Right?
I guess
so
if she was possessed, I think that her being super weird makes more sense. But I found it weird.
I think that's what they were trying to go for, right? Because the last thing she said before that scene was like, oh, Rachel, like I feel her or whatever. She's here.
I think she said, Rachel, is that you? Because that would have been.
She says Rachel is here. Hold on, no.
Which was a running theme throughout the game.
Yeah. But I mean, also it was like, oh, it turns out somebody else is here and that person's Irving. So you could have gone like, oh, Rachel's not really here. That was Irving. But then also there's more going on than.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does say, Rachel, is that you?
Yeah. And then it cuts.
which I think could make sense if they had done something to like make her like become corporeal or something so you could see her.
God, that would have scared the shit out of me.
Right?
I would have
But it
liked a
would've been
shadow or
cool.
something.
I was worried we were going to have to see Irving,
Me too.
and I was not going to be able to handle that well.
Yeah, I don't think we see any faces. They
No.
were like, we're not gonna figure out how to model faces. We saw her hands a bunch.
Yeah, so the ending in which you just let her die, there's not even like a whole lot of audio or anything. There's the audio of the lawyer talking to you on the phone and stuff, and then she says, I don't want to die. It's getting dark. I can't see the light. Now, obviously, the voice actor said it way better than me. I'm not trying.
Oh, come on. That's the
But-
best possible voice acting.
It certainly seems like if you let her die, it seems like she's talking to Rachel or something. So it is possible, Matt, that she was like possessed. And you being able to stop that is, I guess, breaking the possession or some shit. I don't know.
But doesn't she still go like, I'm gonna stay here forever?
Right, yeah, that was you live and you chose to stay forever.
Yeah, well, so maybe Rachel just lives in her body.
Yeah, you're like forever possessed because you chose that.
What also doesn't make sense is like why Nicole even like there's a big storm coming. How did you not know about this? And why did you travel from Seattle?
Yeah.
Like at Christmas time in what is going to be a huge storm. Like why are you even there right now? Like wait till later.
Yeah. Across the board.
Which the
Different story, same environment. Probably a great game.
Which
Yeah.
the map, Irvin had the like map of like there's gonna be a big snowstorm around Christmas time. So did like her dad kill himself so that it could be timed properly that she would come around
Maybe Irving
Christmas
killed
time?
him.
Well, it seemed like they were in on it together, so maybe.
Yeah, but
like,
you know.
And the stuff that he was saying during the projector scene, I was like, are you saying anything? I kind of tuned out. He was just kind of talking about big picture shit, and I was like, is this any of this relevant?
Yeah.
It seemed like they were just trying too hard and got nowhere, and just were creepy in so many different ways.
Oh my god, it's just like you approach so many sensitive subjects, and instead of like having an appropriate response, you like double down on the absolute wrong thing every time. A ghost hunting game would have been cool.
You know, Darian, it's really too bad people didn't want to get that free copy off of us.
Yeah, it's just...
Maybe they read about it, and now I understand
they were
why.
like, I'll try to enter for the next one.
I don't think we'll be able to get someone to take it now. Okay, let me read the code real quick.
Yeah, hold on. Are you sure? There's nobody that just wants to bullshit through this game? I want... just... Can they just, like, release the assets and let fans make a better game? I guess I shouldn't call us fans, because I wouldn't call myself a fan of the game. People who had
took
to
issue
experience it.
Yeah, people who played it. Let us fix it.
Oh, I feel like we're like dogpiling on these guys.
I know. It was nice looking. It would be a great portfolio piece if you're an artist.
Yeah, so it looked really pretty. The limited music that they had was really good. I wish they'd had a bigger soundtrack. The voice acting was actually pretty good, even though like the dialogue ended up not making a whole lot of sense. I feel like the voice actors did a really good job with what they had.
I would say the dialogue was wooden, but their voice acting was
and honestly, they did a really good job of setting the tone of the game. Like I was on edge
they
the
kept
whole
tension
time.
really well.
Okay.
Yeah.
For nothing
There's a lot of
happening
good
scary
stuff
wise.
that they did. It's just that the story sucked ass. And the fact that they tried to make pedophilia is not cool. Not cool at all.
Stop
Not
doing that.
Not here for that.
I'd recommend Firewatch. It's basically the same game.
Spoilers.
Firewatch is not the same game. It's 1,000 times better.
It's got the same structure of days, and you do stuff.
Okay, well, that was Ready Set Game Chat, The Suicide of Rachel Foster.